It's not surprising what Nick Nurse likes about Tobias Harris and what Tobias brings to the table.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's podcast, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So look, y'all, today I want to talk to y'all about Tobias Harris, of course. And then also I want to talk a little bit more about Paul Reed, and then just give it a little bit of the state of the team, right? Heading into training camp, right? So look, Tobias Harris, Nick Nurse likes Tobias. He's excited about coaching Tobias. He feels as if that, with a guy like Tobias Harris, he could utilize him, get the best out of him. And as I had an episode before, none of that's surprising to me, none whatsoever. And the reason why is not surprising is because, when you look at a guy like Tobias, you look at his skill set and you look at, what Nick Nurse has been able to do with Chris Boucher, Pascal Siakam, and, a lot of other guys. You see that Tobias's skill set is similar to theirs, his athleticism. And what I mean by that is he's a power forward, right? Traditionally a power forward who can slide down and play the three. He can shoot the ball. He can handle. He can do a lot of things. Tobias is the type of guy who basically is one of those guys that that keeps reminding you that this is positionless basketball, if we're going to be real, because he can play a lot of different positions. People forget 2 seasons ago when Ben Simmons was holding out, Tobias was their point guard. Yeah, and I get it. Like, people are like, what you mean? Maxey was. No. What they did is Maxey would bring the ball up. He would bring the ball up, cross half court, and hand the ball off to pass it to Tobias. And Tobias would run the offense. They would run their offense through Tobias, and they would run their offense through Joel Embiid, right? So that's what they did. So that tells you this is a power forward at the time. Joel Embiid was a center. It still is a center, right? And it's one of those things. I just had to laugh at that because I'm like, Joel Embiid was a center. Yeah, we all know he's a center. Keith. Like, what are you talking about? But it's one of those things where I feel like they're going to get the most out of Tobias. Now, again, where I say he was a power forward is because you look at it. Last season he was a 3, small forward. They had PJ Tucker at the 4. So, from what I hear is, now Tobias went from being a 4-3 to now some people are looking at him as a 3-4, at least in the Sixers offense. So we'll see how that works out, right? But I kind of sort of like what Nick Nurse said about him, right? Nick is a guy that's going to, like, when you look at it, and when I say said about him, when you think of Tobias under Doc Rivers knew exactly what Tobias could do. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when he was with the Clippers, he ran a lot of things that benefited Tobias. He had him in some pick and rolls. He did some dribble penetration, a penetration with him. He did a lot of other things that to get this guy to make him feel more involved. What happened? Tobias ended up being the best player on that team, which enabled him to get traded to the Sixers and enabled him to get that $180 million that he received. He's heading into the final year of that contract, right? So you look at it since that time, for the most part, Tobias Harris has not been that guy. He has not been a guy that the Sixers took advantage of his strengths, right? Instead, under Brett Brown for a couple of years, he was in the corner, right? Shooting threes. He had that 1 year that Ben was out or whatever, Doc's first year, they incorporated him a lot. But then once James came, Tobias went from being the third option, third option, and the second option when Ben held out. But before that, he was a third option. Then he was a second. Then when James came, he slid all the way down to the fourth option. But you look at a guy like Nick Nurse, who knows exactly what Tobias can do, and he's going to try to utilize all that, right? Now, the one thing is he's going to utilize that, but he also knows there's going to have to be a little bit of a give and take when like a guy like Paul Reed plays. Now, Kai Carlin, Sixers Wire, great reporter, great young reporter, one of the best in the business as far as young guys. He has a bright future. He had to sit down with Nick Nurse, and Nick Nurse. This is what Nick Nurse told Kai Carlin of Sixers Wire, or how he'll integrate Tobias Harris into the systems. There's so much more he could possibly do, and I think I kind of want him to settle in and play this role that he's capable of playing, that's he's got to experience playing. All right. But I do kind of want him to dream outside that role and expand outside that role eventually. Right. So, basically telling what he's saying is the role that he likes playing, being, had touching the ball, doing other things. We want to get him doing it, right? We want to start that, get that. But then it's going to be a little bit of a give and take, right? So whereas Tobias is going to have that role start out, but then they realize you're going to have to do some other things to get other people involved, right? And I think that that's fair. I do. I think that's fair because when you think of it, it's kind of like, yes, you're going to have this role, but then we're going to have to get other people involved, a la Paul Reed, other guys, in order for us to keep everyone honest, right? Keep people honest, especially as we don't, especially if the Sixers like don't have James and they're trying to make a trade and they get some new people. You're gonna have to get everybody involved. But the fact that he is saying this, that we're going to do what he feels and what he likes, right? But then we want him to go outside the box. That's better than before. Before it's like, hey, look, you're the fourth option. You're the fourth option, right? It is what it is. But I do think you have to keep your players happy. So this is more Nurse, right? I do keep a pretty loose lid on the roles, if that makes any sense, because I think there are some guys, maybe they never shoot 3-pointers before and they're not bad. And we may need them to shoot more threes or whatever it is, right? Paul Reed would be a good example for us for that. When you got James and Joel out there, there's going to be some open threes. So let's start to open with their minds a little bit and let's go working on it and let's see what happens. Things like that. So, you know what? That's where, like I said, Paul Reed, that's where Tobias is going to have to make some sacrifices. But at the same time, when you think about that, so Tobias comes down, he gets the ball, whatever. You got these other guys. You kick it out to Paul. Paul hits the three. That's just going to open it up for everybody because then they're going to have to guard everyone differently. And what does that do? Tobias Harris is a guy who thrives in ball movement, doing a lot of other things. Like he's not a ball hog. He's a guy who passes up a good shot for a great shot. He's a guy who does the give and goes. He does a lot of all these other things. But when you have a guy like Paul Reed making shots, a guy like Daniel House, Kelly Oubre, things like that, making shots. All that does is it brings it back. And then all of a sudden, Tobias gets different looks and then he excels, right? So those are the things that are going to happen, and things that I'm really looking forward to seeing this year with the Sixer squad. I really am, y'all. I think, and I get it. Some people talk about Tobias's contract. They say a lot of other things about him, this and that. But I think he is a good player. I do. I think he's a really good player, and I think that when I look at the attributes he have and everything he brings to the table, he's going to have a lot of success under Nick Nurse. I really think he will. I do. Right. But when we get back from this little commercial break, I do want to talk to you guys about Paul Reed and how I think that he's also going to benefit from all this. I mean, Paul's a great player too in his own right for what his role is. But the thing about him shooting threes and doing everything, I think Nick Nurse is on to something, right? So, talk to you about the Jace case, right? The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jace case is fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions. Doctor created, doctor recommended, right? See, the message is you don't want to be caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care, right? So there's a lot that you need to do with this. Now, the thing about it is this is a great get because when you get this case, you save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code locked on at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. I'm telling you, you got to do it. Again, save more than $300 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code locked on at checkout at Jace Medical. That's JASE medical.com, promo code locked on. Telling y'all, do it today, people. Definitely do it today. Now, the thing about my man Paul Reed, right? Paul is getting an opportunity. And when you talk to Paul, he's excited about this opportunity. He's also excited that the Sixers are paying, right? And so for him, we got to think about something now. And I know you say, of course, he's excited that the Sixers are paying him, right? Of course, he's excited. But think about this: him getting paid this money is the Sixers telling him how much they value him. They could have let him walk. They could have said, you know what? Paul's not quite there. We like him. He's an energy guy, a role player. We're not going to match this money. The Utah Jazz, it was great for you. Good luck. Good luck, Paul. Have fun with Utah, right? Good luck. Because when you look at Paul Reed, yes, as a rookie, he was the G League's MVP. He was the G League's Rookie of the Year. But he didn't play a lot with the Sixers. And when he got in, he got a lot of quick hooks. He became like, and I hate the term, so I'm not going to say whipping boy, but people call people that. I hate that term. But what he was is he was the guy that got yelled at a lot, right? Yelled at a lot. So he did get better. Last year, he played in a career high, I want to say 69 games. He averaged 4.3 points, right? Would you say that's not a lot? But that's a bit misleading because let's face it, he was the reason why, part of the reason why they closed out the Brooklyn Nets in a 4 game sweep. He started game 4 in place of an injured Joel Embiid. He had like 10 points, 15 rebounds, a couple blocks, couple steals. He was all over the place, right? First half is a little shaky. Second half, he came out and he played. He also played well in game 1 and getting the start in game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, right? So he played well there as well. So, with all that being said, you look at it and you say to yourself, you're like, Paul is, of course, he's happy that he's getting paid because guess what they're telling him? We have faith in you. And as a guy like him, you can always look at how you didn't get paid or how you got fussed at or you didn't play a lot, and you can look at it and be like, yo, they don't have faith in me. But the fact that they did, it kind of is motivating him to go out there and let them know that they made the right decision, right? So with all that being said, you look at a guy like Paul and you're saying like he's saying like, all right, we got this. We're going to do this thing. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I think that, this is going to be great for him. I do. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do. Now, the thing about Paul is, and I keep saying that to people I talk to, and you figure it out. Paul played all 3 different positions. Like in high school, at one point, he was a small forward, right? And then he goes to college and he plays power forward. Then he goes to the pros and they got him playing center. And it was one of those things that every summer league they were always saying, "We think Paul can do more. Paul can do more. We think Paul can be uh, a 3. We think Paul can do this and do that." So, now he has a coach in Nick Nurse who I feel like is going to take advantage of all that and then have, Paul doing, different things. So I'm excited about Paul Reed. I do. Now, the thing is, do you want to start him? Like we talked about that, me and my man John Mitchell a couple of days ago. Um, maybe, but it just depends on what the Sixers are going to do. Now, if he can hit threes, if Paul can go out there and hit threes like they want him to do and stretch the floor, yeah, because then you'll have somebody who can do all the dirty work, right? I'm talking about grabbing rebounds, defending, bringing other defensive energy to it. You got 2 quality defenders in the starting lineup, him and Joel. But again, the question is, if you don't bring PJ Tucker, if you don't start him, if you don't start PJ, how are you going to utilize? I mean, how will he be utilized? Because in the starting lineup, let's just say if James is here and all these other people, PJ's job, he doesn't have to score. He doesn't have to do anything. He just sets pick. He does what he has to do. But coming off the bench, you're not going to have that much offensive firepower in some of the rotations that he's going to be in. So then you got to put more pressure on him to bring an offensive game and do things like that. So the best fit for him might be the starting lineup. So that's something that, Nick Nurse has to think about, think long and hard about. But I honestly think if Paul Reed can get it down and do what he has to do, hit threes, I think that he would be really good. Now let's talk about some other things when we get right back from this commercial break. Snap into this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Visit fanduel.com, include money lines, props, and etc. around your team. I'm telling you, do it today, people. Definitely do it today. Now, when you talk about the state of the team, it's a little tricky, right? Because, you say to yourself, like, what is James Harden going to do? Right? So if James Harden comes and he plays well, then you say, like, okay, it's good. But if James Harden doesn't come, then like, okay, what are you going to do? Who's going to be the point guard? Who, Maxey brought the ball up the last time, talking about when the whole Ben Simmons situation, but you ran it through Tobias. Now you have Patrick Beverly. So what are you going to do? Like, is Pat going to be the point guard? Is he going to be the starter? Is it going to be DeAnthony Melton? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So again, is a lot of options, but as I said before, I'm excited about this upcoming season because there's so many question marks. There are. And, I know a lot of people aren't high on this team, and I'm not. I don't think that this team, I'm sorry, I don't think that right now as this team is constructed, that they're going to come out of the East. I don't think that they'll get out of the second round. I don't. I just don't. And, I get it where a lot of people are saying, the opportunity is there for them. Some people are high on what the Boston Celtics did. Other people are not. Some people look at Giannis saying he doesn't know if he wants to come back to Milwaukee as something that could, like hinder the team. Well, I think stuff can be a little bit compartmentalized. I think that Giannis is enough of a professional, or most people are, to whereas if you're going to leave, you want to go out with a championship, right? You want to make your last season with a team pretty good. So I feel like if this is it, he's going to want to ball. So I'm not one of those people that think that his saying he doesn't know about re-signing with the team or coming back with the team past this year or what have you is going to impact the team this year, impact his performance. Because he's the type of guy now, he's so good that if he says he wants out, I see them trying to make right, as opposed to saying, well, if he wants out and we're not going to get him back, we might as well just trade him during the season. And I don't see that happening. I just don't. Maybe if he wants out and he says he's not coming out, we can get a sign and trade at the end of the season, free agency period. But I don't see them part ways with him. So with that being said, I feel like the Sixers are going to have a hard time. They are. I feel like they're going to have a hard time coming out of the East, or at least maybe getting to the conference finals. Now, again, if they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. More power to them. That's kind of great, but I just don't see it. I don't see it, right? But look, y'all, Keith Pompey here. I want to thank y'all for listening to Locked On 76ers. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. Every dayers. Tomorrow's show, we'll have a guest. I got Gary Washburn, columnist from the Boston Globe, to talk about the Boston Celtics. One of the two teams that I think that are going to be above the Sixers. And I'm going to have G Wash. That's my guy. I'm telling you, great read in the Boston Globe, great reporter. And he's always 100% honest. He keeps it real, keeps it 100. And we're going to talk to him about the Boston Celtics. And, I also want to ask him, how do people in Boston perceive the Sixers in the city of Philadelphia? I just want to ask him that. because I grew up here in Philly, and I could tell you, as a kid growing up, I was taught to hate people from Boston. I was taught to hate the Boston Celtics, right? So I just want to know if it's the same thing in Boston, how they feel about the Sixers, similar to the way we feel about the Celtics. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.